G'day guys, welcome to Lure Fishing Oz. I'm Scott Maz. I want to bring to you today a very quick tip on knots. One of the things I said in lesson 1 was that having the strongest knot is not the most important thing. I want you to think about this, and same with everything else with fishing, it's all about compromise. The strongest knots often take the longest amount of time to try and tie. The reality is that if you're sitting in a boat, it's blowing with wind, it's bouncing up and down, it's freezing cold and your hands are wet, the last thing you want to be doing is be trying to tie a very complex knot. You're tying, that you don't tie very often. So my first recommendation to anybody who's starting out fishing or anybody who's an advanced fisherman is quite simple. You're better off tying a knot that's not 100% knot incredibly well and making it consistent than you are trying to tie a complex knot and buggering it up. All right, so I'm going to start off with a couple of quick tips. There's 3 types of knots you need to know. The first type of knot is going to be your terminal knot. That's the knot that's going to go right at the end between you and the hook. Okay, the ones that are going to go right at the finishing point. They come under a couple of categories, particularly if you're lure fishing. You want a fixed knot that'll go down and hold the hook nice and tight, or you want a loop knot. So a fixed knot will go down hard up against the eye or the shaft of the hook, and the loop knot will give you a lot more flexibility and allow your eye of your hook to move around. Now that's particularly what you will use if you're using some hard bodies in some situations, some surface lures, and on some jig heads with soft plastics. We'll move into those further on down the track. So terminal knot, that's going to go to a hook or to a swivel. A loop knot, fixed knot, or alternatively you need a knot if you're fishing with braided line that's going to allow you to join your leader or mono or fluorocarbon line to your braided line. So what I've got here is a piece of 30-pound braid that I use on my big rock rod and my big spinning rod, my 13-foot graphite rod for spinning off the beach. And I've got some 40-pound line here that I would normally use for a fairly large trace or a leader. Same as last time, I'm going to be using hook sizes and lines that are slightly larger than I would normally use, simply so it shows up on the camera perfectly well for everybody. So, I'm going to use, first up, the mono to tie to the hook. The easiest knot of the lot to learn to tie is the locked half blood knot. So it's a half blood knot. So we spoke about this one in the last video, where I simply go through the eye of the hook, make a loop. Now some people try and make this much too hard for themselves. They work down really close to the hook and then they have a tiny little space to put the line through. So make it nice and large for yourself. Go 1, 2, 3. Oop, just had to slip out of my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you wondered why I skipped a number in that count, it's because I realised there was one already in it. And then I'm simply going to put the tag end through the hole near the hook, like that. Now I can just pull that tight where it is, no problems in the world. Some people do find that they do slip from time to time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock that half blood knot now, and I'm going to take that tag end and I'm going to put it back through the loop that's been made in the line. So now I'm going to have the tag and the line together up near the top, and I'm simply going to pull on my hook so it starts to slide down, and then I'm going to pull it down a bit more, and I'm just going to coax its way down the line. Now if you're using line that's less than 40 pound, you'll find this will slip really easily. If you're using a big line like this, sometimes they are that little bit harder to slide down. So I'm just going to wet it, make sure there's not too much friction in there, and then pull it down the rest of the way. Now you can wet them with water. There's no two ways about it. Water certainly works. Saliva definitely works a lot better. So pull it nice and tight, pull on your tag end nice and tight, and then pull on your hook nice and tight. Now, if those coils are sitting nice and straight all the way down, you've got a fairly strong knot, and it'll certainly do 99.9% of the fishing you're going to be doing. So leave a little bit of line hanging off there, and it'll be very unusual for that knot to slip. Now you'll know if that knot slipped because when you get that line back, if you lose a fish, you'll have a tiny little squiggly end on there, and it probably meant you didn't pull it all the way down nice and tight. So make sure it's strong. All right, that's your locked half-blood knot. Now, as I say, you're going to use that on your hooks and you're going to use that on your swivels. So I'm going to pop that one off there and I'm going to put it out of the way. There's several different ways of tying a loop knot. Now, I'm going to show you one way, just one way, okay, and just to get you started. What we're going to do here is we're simply going to take our line and we're going to do what starts off as a granny knot, but we're going to go through once, then we're going to go through twice. So we end up with the line going through there a couple of times. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it until it goes down to a figure 8. Now there's lots and lots of different ways of finishing the top half of this knot. There's a reason why I'm going to show you a uni knot above it, okay? And that's going to become important when we do our 2 line sides. So, same again, through the eye of my hook. I'm now going to take the line and I'm going to go through one side of the figure 8. Now, as I say, there's a knot where you can go through the other side of the figure 8. You go up around a couple of turns and back down through the figure 8. They all work, okay? There's lots of different ways of doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take the line and I'm going to curl it around itself like that, so that I've gone down through there and I've just made a little twist in the line just above where that knot is. See if I can show you that there. There's the knot where it's come back through the line. I've got the line going up the leader like that. I turn it around like that so it's got one little twist in it. And then I'm going to take that tag end and I'm going to go through there once and twice. And I'm going to pull that one down too. So once I get this one positioned where I want it, I'm going to tighten that one up there, pull that one down to there, and I'm going to pull it tight. And once again, I've left more than I need there, okay? You'll adjust that to the height that you really want at the time, okay? Pull it tight, hold onto your hook or your lure, pull it really, really tight, and that's not going to slip anywhere, okay? So, very straightforward. A figure 8, in through like a granny knot twice, pull it down until it goes to a figure 8, go up, make a little loop around the top of the line, go through there twice, pull it tight, and then slide it all down together. Alright, that'll get you started. As I say, there's lots and lots of different knots online. You can have a look, practice them, and make sure you practice them so you can tie them with cold, wet, shaky hands. Alright, next, we want to join 2 lines together. This is a very contentious area, okay? Now the answer to which knot works the best is it depends which line you're using. There are lines that will work with some knots and not with others. Berkeley came out with a fantastic line a few years ago called Nano. Loved it. Beautiful line. Cast perfectly. You could put lots of it on the spool. It was nice and fine. There was only one problem. If you used a standard needle leader knot, it popped all the time. So we had to adapt our knots in order to suit it. Once I figured that out, it was fantastic. That was called, the one I used was called a modified candle. But I'm going to show you one of the easier knots. It's also a very reliable knot if you tie it properly. And I'm going to teach you how to tie it properly first, and then we'll work from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leader and my line, and I'm simply going to run the 2 past each other so that my leader is sitting up the line. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did with the loop knot. I'm simply going to go around in a circle just like that. I'm now going to take that tag end right there and I'm going to run it through the 2 lines like that. Now, depending on the size of the line is going to be the number of times I wrap it through there. And I normally start with 8 to 10 turns, okay? So if I'm using 6 to 10 pound line, 8 to 10 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one more, 8. Now, I'm making this nice and small so it's easy to see on the camera. When you do this in real life, you can make this much larger and you get a bit more control over it. Now, the next thing I'm doing is you'll see that I have these sitting perfectly flat. That is the most important part of this knot. These must be sitting flat. You don't want them doubling over each other. What we want to do is make a nice knot that's very, very neat and tidy. So I'm just going to keep my loops going over like that, and I'm not going to tighten it any more than that. But what you should be able to see is a nice clean set of loops all the way like that in a line. Now if they bunch up or they go in and out on each other, they're going to create a weak spot in this knot. I'm going to then roll this one over, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my leader knot and I'm going to go up the line. 1, 2, and this one I shorten up. 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if you look at this, the very, very soft braided line has now worked its way around the inside of the main line of the leader. So what I want to do is I'm going to hold the braid this time and make sure I only pull on the tag end for the leader. Once again, I want to pull it down so that these little loops here are going to sit nicely around the outside edge of that braid. Just tease it up, take your time, it's not a rush. I'm not tightening this knot all the way up at this point. I want it to be able to slide down the line. I'm going to cinch it up in just a moment. So I'm just working it up nice and slowly, just like that. You're better off taking an extra couple of seconds and tying your knot properly than rushing it and losing a fish. Okay, I'm going to lubricate that line, grab hold of the braid, and I'm just going to gently slide it up until it meets in the middle, and I'm going to pull it tight. I'm now going to take the tag ends of my line and I'm going to pull those tight, both sides, so that they sit right down on the braid nice and square and on the leader nice and square. And I pull that tight again. Now, if you've done this correctly, you're going to end up with a line, a knot, where as it goes through the guides, the braided section is going to offer a little bit of a guide into the main line. Now, obviously with 40-pound line, this has made a much larger knot on this side. When you look at this and you're doing it with 6 and 8 pound line and you're doing it with anything from 4 to 12 pound leader, you'll find a much tidier, neater knot. So I'm going to cut that off there with my braid scissors, down very, very close. Grab my other end and I'm going to cut this one down very, very close. You'll be surprised how close you can cut those. So double check, give it a good pull. And that is actually a very, very good knot. Right now, a lot of people decry the uni-knot as, you know, being a weak knot. It's not. It's not if you tie it properly. If you don't tie it properly, then it's like any other knot, not tied properly. There are other knots that are better. FG knots and, you know, bimini twists and all those sorts of things. Fantastic knots. I particularly like the FG knot, but the FG knot is a knot that I'm going to tie at night before I go fishing, and then I'm going to tie a really nice clean uni if for any reason I have to tie a new leader on during the day. Alright, so that is a straight uni knot. Now there is another way to tie this uni knot, and that is to tie it as a double. So what we can do, if you're really concerned about the strength of your knot, you can take your main line, your braid, fold it over like that, then grab your leader, put your leader past it, make the loop exactly the same way as you did before, and roll it over. Now it's really important when you do roll that over though, that as you run these through together, you make sure they sit the right way. So we're going to go same thing through there, in this case 8 to 10 times, but you'll look, it's going to bunch up a bit. So we're going to be very, very careful when we do this to make sure that it's neat. 2, 3, and I'm trying not to twist it as I go. Oop. Oh, I'll try it again. We'll get one more in there. And then pull it nice and steady, nice and even, just like that. It's really important that we hold the tag ends as well as the main line as we pull this through, because we don't want it coming loose, and we want it to be nice and even on the way. And we pull it down like that. Now once again, I want that to be able to slide up and down the leader. I'm then going to come over to this side, and I'm going to make sure that my main line has both its tag end and the line next to each other. And I'm going to go around in that direction, and I'm going to put my winds in there again. So I mentioned before, it depends on the size of the line as to the number of loops you put in there. It's funny, it's actually the bigger the line, the heavier line, the less loops you can get away with. So in this case, we'll put 4 in there, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to tease those down together once again, making sure that I don't allow the line on the braid to bunch up too much. So what you might need to do in some of these times when you're tying this knot, as I say, you're generally going to be tying this at home the night before, is I want you to grab something you can wrap around the line. Now, I happen to have just a little screw here that'll give me something to hold on to, and I'm simply going to pull my line down like that, pull my leader, pull the line, pull the leader, pull the line until it sits down nice and even. Now, being 40 pound, it just wanted to be a little bit difficult, and just as I got to that end section, one of the loops popped over. But you get the point. I don't want to make this video too long. The 3 knots you need: a terminal knot that's going to go down so it sits nicely right on the end of your hook. And as I say, for that, a locked half blood knot, or even just a half blood knot, depending on the size of the line. If you don't have a wire size on your hook that's too big in comparison to the line size, then you don't have to generally lock that knot. If you have a bigger hook or a bigger jig head wire size, then you need to put that little lock into the half blood knot. So a knot that goes all the way to the hook, as I say, or the swivel. A knot that's going to give you a loop knot, so you've got the flexibility to have the hook or the lure swiveling on there. And a knot that's going to allow you to join the 2 lines together. So that's the quick tip this week. As I say, a consistent knot is a lot easier to fish with than a knot is necessarily the strongest. 100% knot is very, very difficult to achieve. It's not that it's impossible, it's just that if you've tied it right, there's no dramas. If you've made one little mistake, there's a problem. Practice your knots, and I mean practice doing them before you go out fishing. Set your rigs up. Just another little tip just for you to think about. There's nothing to stop you setting your rigs up a couple of days before, or nights before, or weeks before. Just grab yourself some cardboard, put a little slit in the cardboard just like that, one on each end. Do it in a couple of places, just a bit of scrap cardboard like that. Take your hook, drop the hook in one side. You can even put it into the cardboard if you really, really want, so that way you know that nobody's going to get stuck with the hook. Tie your swivels on the end, and then just run it around the other side. Okay, drop that in the bottom of your tackle box. When it's time to go fishing, the only thing you've got to worry about doing is tying the swivel straight to your main line. But that's a quick tip. Any questions you've got, please don't forget, put them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're that way inclined. You'll find that I'll have a quick tips video out every week, at least for the next 3 or 4 months. And we're going to have our big video each week as well. Lesson 1's already up. That's the one on the best basic rigs to get you started catching fish. We've had a look at some of the important things about getting dressed the right way and wearing the right coloured clothes. Now we've covered some knots. We're going to talk about a couple of issues surrounding your rigs, and we're going to go into our next lesson, how to actually hook fish using that basic rig. So keep an eye out for that one, guys. So let me know if there's anything you need to know. Hope you catch more fish and have lots of fun, guys. Thanks for your time.